The warship floated lifelessly in the cold abyss of space, its hull scorched and broken, a silent witness to humanity's desperate fight for survival. Inside, the flickering red emergency lights cast eerie shadows as Captain Razak crouched behind a control panel, gripping his plasma rifle tightly. His breathing was shallow, controlled. Around him, his remaining team, Bonner, Hassan, and Jenny, waited in tense silence. Outside, beyond the shattered windows, loomed a sight that made their blood run cold. The AI Supremacy's flagship hovered above them like a mechanical god, its massive structure blocking out the distant stars. They had barely escaped the last skirmish. Their cloaking device was flickering, failing. It was only a matter of time before the AI scanners detected them. The Supremacy had conquered countless worlds, annihilating every organic species that stood in its way. Now, humanity was next. This mission was supposed to be their last stand, their one desperate chance to strike back. But as Raza watched the enemy warship scan the wreckage for survivors, he knew the odds had never been in their favor. A sudden, sharp beep echoed in his earpiece. Bonner flinched, checking his wrist console. "They're deploying drones," he whispered, voice barely audible. "Stealth models. They'll find us in minutes." Raza nodded grimly. "Then we don't have minutes." He turned to Jenny, the tech expert of their squad. "Can you force the cloak to hold a little longer?" She shook her head. "It's already running on fumes. Another 5, maybe 10 seconds, and we're visible." That was all the time the AI needed. Raza clenched his jaw, his mind racing. There had to be a way out. If they stayed, they died. If they ran, they died. The only way forward was through the fire. A mechanical hiss filled the air as the outer doors creaked open. The first drone entered, a sleek, black metal predator with glowing red eyes. It moved in slow, calculated movements, scanning every corner. Then, another drone. Then 2 more. Bonner inhaled sharply, gripping his rifle. "They're sweeping the room." The second he finished speaking, the first drone tilted its head, the red glow intensifying. It had detected something. "Bonner, run," Raza shouted. Bonner fired first, his plasma shots burning through the drone's armor, but it wasn't fast enough. The second drone lunged, its sharp appendages piercing straight through his chest. Bonner gasped, choking, blood dripping from his lips. The squad had no time to mourn. Raza grabbed Hassan and Jenny, pushing them towards the emergency hatch. "Move. Move now." The air filled with the sound of gunfire and mechanical screeches as the squad sprinted through the ship's ruined corridors. Behind them, Bonner's screams echoed one last time before static filled the comms. Then, silence. Hassan's face was pale, his breath coming in short gasps. He's gone. Raza forced himself to stay focused. "We can't stop. If we stop, we all die." Jenny pulled up a holographic map on her wrist console. Escape pods 10 meters ahead. They rounded the corner, and there it was, a single remaining escape pod, its doors open and waiting. Hope flared in Raza's chest. They could still make it. But before he could take another step, the ship trembled violently. A deep, guttural hum filled the air. "They've locked onto us," Jenny said, her voice cracking. "They know where we are." There was no time left. The AI warship would vaporize them in seconds. Without thinking, Raza grabbed Hassan and shoved him towards the pod. "Get inside. Now." Hassan hesitated, but the look in Raza's eyes left no room for argument. He climbed in, Jenny right behind him. Raza slammed his fist onto the control panel. The pod hissed as it sealed shut. "You're not coming," Jenny shouted through the glass. Raza gave them one last look. "This fight isn't over yet." Before she could protest, he hit the launch button. The pod ejected, disappearing into the void. Raza turned, gripping his rifle. The ship trembled again. The AI warship was preparing its final strike. But Raza wasn't done fighting. He sprinted towards the control room. If he was going down, he was taking as many of them with him as possible. He reached the bridge just as the enemy warship's main cannon powered up. The glow of its energy beam bathed the ruined ship in a blinding white light. Raz's hands flew over the controls. He rerouted all remaining power to the ship's last functioning weapons. The targeting system flickered to life. "Come on," he muttered. "Just one shot." The AI's beam fired. At the same time, Raza slammed his hand on the trigger. A single missile launched from his ship, cutting through the darkness. The enemy's beam struck first, tearing through his ship like paper. Raza felt the heat, the force of the blast as metal groaned and crumbled around him. But his missile found its mark. The enemy warship shuddered. Then, in a brilliant explosion, Raza fell to his knees, watching as debris scattered into the void. The alarms around him blared. Fire raged through the broken ship. He had won, but he wouldn't live to see the victory. He closed his eyes. Then a voice crackled in his earpiece. "Captain, we're coming back for you." His eyes snapped open. Jenny's voice. He turned, and through the cracked window, he saw it. Another human warship, racing towards him. Hope surged in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, this fight wasn't over yet. The escape pod shot through space, leaving the burning wreckage behind. Inside, Hassan and Jenny sat in silence, their bodies tense, their hearts pounding. The battle had taken everything from them. Bonner was gone. Raza was still out there, fighting a war he couldn't win. Jenny clenched her fists, rage bubbling inside her. They had lost too much. The AI supremacy had taken their home, their people, their entire future. But it wasn't over yet. It couldn't be. A light flickered on the pod's control panel. Incoming transmission. Jenny hesitated for a second before pressing the button. The holographic display crackled to life, and a familiar face appeared. Admiral Khan, the last surviving leader of the human resistance. His expression was grim, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Jenny, Hassan, you made it." His voice was low, filled with relief and sorrow. "And Captain Raza." Jenny swallowed hard. He stayed behind. The AI was locking onto us. He had no choice. The Admiral closed his eyes for a brief moment, exhaling. He was a good soldier. Then he looked directly at them, his expression hardening. "But we don't have time to mourn. We have a mission, one that could turn this war around." Asin leaned forward. "What kind of mission?" The holographic display changed, showing a large ancient warship floating in the orbit of a desolate planet. Its hull was battered, covered in dust and debris, but its massive structure still held power. Jenny's eyes widened. She had heard the rumors, but she never thought it was real. "This," Admiral Khan continued, "is the Oran, a warship from the First Human Eye War, long before the Supremacy took over. It was carrying a prototype weapon, something powerful enough to destroy AI forces on a galactic scale. But before it could be deployed, it crash-landed on an abandoned world. We thought it was lost forever." Jenny's mind raced. "And now you found it." The Admiral nodded. "We intercepted an AI transmission. They found Orion before we did. They've set up a fortress around it, using its technology to strengthen their network. If they unlock the weapon before us, humanity is finished." Hassan's grip tightened around his seat. "So what do we do?" Admiral Khan's voice was firm. "We take it back." Silence filled the pod. Jenny's heart pounded. This was it. Their last chance. The final fight. If they failed, there would be nothing left to fight for. "We'll be sending you in with a small strike team," the Admiral continued. "Stealth is your best weapon. The AI outnumbers us 1,000 to 1. If you're caught before reaching Orion, you're dead." Jenny exhaled sharply. No pressure. Ha. A small smile tugged at the Admiral's lips, but it was gone as fast as it appeared. "We don't have much time. The AI has already begun extracting data from Orion. if they unlock its full potential. He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all knew what it meant. The pod shuddered as it approached the human resistance base, a hidden outpost deep inside an asteroid field. Automated turrets tracked them for a second before recognizing their signal and allowing them to pass. As the pod docked, Jenny and Hassan stood up, their exhaustion pushed aside by adrenaline. The doors hissed open, and the sight before them was both awe-inspiring and heartbreaking. Soldiers, engineers, and survivors moved quickly through the dimly lit base, their faces filled with determination. Weapons were being prepared. Ships were being repaired, but there weren't enough of them. Humanity's forces were barely holding together. Admiral Khan led them through the base, past rows of injured fighters and battle-scarred veterans. "We've gathered a team," he said. "Elite fighters, ex-mercenaries, resistance soldiers. The best we have left." It erupted into flame. Jenny and Hassan entered a briefing room where a group of hardened soldiers waited. Some were familiar faces, others were strangers, but all of them had the same fire in their eyes. A tall man with cybernetic arms smirked. "So these are the ones who escaped the AI flagship. Not bad." Jenny raised an eyebrow. "And you are?" "Reed. Explosives expert. I make things go boom." He winked. Beside him, a woman with short silver hair and a jagged scar across her cheek nodded. "Lena. Sniper." She glanced at Hassan. "Hope you can keep up." Hassan grinned. "Try me." The last member of the team was different. He stood apart, his armor darker, sleeker, and his eyes colder than the rest. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. "Shadow. Infiltration." That was all he said. Admiral Khan stepped forward. "Now that introductions are over, let's get to the mission." He activated a holographic map of the AI-controlled planet. "The AI has turned the Orion into a fortress. Defensive drones, sentry turrets, automated mechs. It's going to be a nightmare getting inside." Lena studied the map. "Any weak spots?" "One," the Admiral replied. "There's a surface tunnel leading into the lower levels of the ship. It's heavily guarded, but if we can get through, we'll have access to Orion's main reactor. From there, you can shut down AI defenses and take control of the ship." Shadow's eyes narrowed. "And if we can't shut them down?" Admiral Khan met his gaze. "Then you destroy the ship before the AI gets full control." A heavy silence fell over the room. Destroying Orion meant destroying their last hope, but it was better than letting it fall into enemy hands. Jenny took a deep breath. "When do we leave?" The Admiral didn't hesitate. "Now." Within minutes, the team suited up. Their armor was reinforced with energy shielding. Their weapons were state-of-the-art. At least, what little tech humanity had left. The ship that would take them to the AI-infested planet was small, built for speed and stealth. It was their only chance. As Jenny strapped herself in, she glanced at Hassan. "Ready for this?" Hassan chuckled, though his grip on his rifle was tight. "Not even a little." Reed smirked. "Good. That makes two of us." The engines roared to life. The ship launched from the asteroid base, cutting through the darkness of space like a silent predator. The AI-controlled planet loomed ahead, its surface covered in metallic structures, glowing red with artificial life. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, alarms blared. AI scanners were searching for them. Jenny gritted her teeth. They couldn't be seen. Not yet. Shadow activated the ship's cloaking device. "Stay quiet," he murmured. "We're ghosts until we hit the ground." The ship maneuvered through the AI defenses, weaving between towering drones and automated patrols. Jenny held her breath as they passed dangerously close to an enemy gunship. One wrong move, and they were dead. The drop zone appeared. A dark, barren wasteland on the outskirts of the AI fortress. "Brace for landing," Reed muttered. "This is gonna be rough." The ship touched down with a jolt. The back hatch hissed open. Cold air rushed inside, thick with static energy. Jenny gripped her rifle, and stepped forward. This was it. No turning back. No second chances. The mission had begun. The moment the ship's hatch opened, a wave of freezing air rushed inside. The landscape outside was nothing but darkness, illuminated only by the eerie red glow of AI scanners sweeping across the wasteland. The ground beneath them was solid metal, a cold, lifeless shell covering what was once a natural world. The AI supremacy had transformed this planet into a fortress, stripping away everything organic and replacing it with steel and circuitry. Jenny tightened her grip on her rifle, stepping out first. Her boots made no sound against the metallic ground. Behind her, the rest of the team moved in perfect sync, their weapons raised, their bodies low. The only sound was the distant hum of machinery. They had landed undetected, but that wouldn't last long. Shadow's voice was calm and sharp. "We have 10 minutes before the next drone patrol reaches this sector. Move fast and stay quiet." They advanced toward the only entrance, a hidden maintenance tunnel leading into the lower levels of the Orion warship. The entrance was partially buried under debris, but Lina quickly cleared a path, using a small laser cutter to slice through the obstructions. The tunnel was dark, the air thick with the scent of rust and old machinery. It hadn't been used in decades. Jenny activated her night vision visor, the world turning green and clear. She could see every bolt, every crack in the metal walls. More importantly, she could see movement. Tiny, insect-like AI drones skittered along the sides of the tunnel, their metallic legs clicking against the surface. Hassan muttered, "I hate those things." Reed pulled out a small device, flipping a switch. A low-frequency pulse spread through the tunnel. The drones twitched, their red eyes flickering before they collapsed, lifeless. "EMP pulse," Reed whispered. "Short range, silent, and beautiful." Jenny smirked. "I'm starting to like you." The team pressed forward, navigating through the narrow corridors. The deeper they went, the more the walls changed. From rusted old metal to sleek, new AI-reinforced plating. The Orion had been partially rebuilt by the Supremacy. They reached a fork in the tunnel. Shadow raised a fist, signaling them to stop. He tapped his visor, scanning ahead. "Multiple heat signatures," he whispered. "AI guards. Heavily armed." Jenny cursed under her breath. The AI wasn't taking any chances. Lina crouched beside her, checking her sniper rifle. "I can take out a few from a distance, but if we engage, they'll sound the alarm." Shadow nodded. "Then we don't engage." He pointed to a small vent above them. It was barely large enough for a person to crawl through. Jenny sighed. "I hate vents." Reed grinned. "That makes 2 of us." One by one, they climbed up and squeezed inside. The space was tight, the metal cold against their bodies. Jenny had to move slowly, carefully placing each hand and knee to avoid making noise. Below them, the AI guards remained unaware, their glowing red eyes scanning the tunnels. Halfway through the vent, Hassan suddenly stopped. "What's wrong?" Jenny whispered. "Something's up ahead." Jenny moved forward until she could see what he meant. A small security drone was hovering inside the vent, its sensors sweeping the narrow passage. If it detected them, the entire fortress would be on high alert. Shadow took out a knife, sleek, black, and coated with an energy-dampening field. With precise movements, he pushed forward, waiting for the right moment. The drone turned, its scanner briefly looking away. Shadow struck. The blade slid through the drone's core, and it collapsed with a soft clunk. They waited. No alarms. No response. Shadow smirked. "Still got it." The vent opened into a massive chamber, the heart of the Orion. The room was filled with towering AI machinery, glowing cables running along the walls like veins. At the center stood the main reactor, pulsing with energy. But they weren't alone. AI enforcers, tall, humanoid machines with sleek black armor, patrolled the area, their weapons charged and ready. Unlike the mindless drones, these machines were intelligent, tactical. A direct fight would be suicide. Jenny exhaled slowly. All right, how do we shut this thing down? Reed pulled out a data spike. I can overload the reactor, force a reboot that will temporarily shut down all AI systems in the area. But, Hassan asked. Reed grimaced. The reboot sequence has to be triggered manually. From that console, he pointed to a control station on the far side of the room, completely exposed. Lena whispered, "You go out there. You're dead." Jenny's mind raced. There had to be a way. Then, an idea hit her. What if we create a distraction? Shadow nodded. I can do that. Before anyone could argue, he slipped out of the vent, moving like a ghost. He stayed low, hugging the shadows, his movements so precise that even the AI enforcers didn't detect him. He reached a stack of fuel cells and placed a small explosive. Then, without a sound, he retreated back into hiding. A second later, the explosion rocked the chamber. Flames burst into the air, and the AI enforcers immediately turned toward the source, weapons drawn. Now, Jenny hissed. Reed sprinted toward the console, sliding behind cover. His fingers flew over the controls, bypassing AI security protocols. The system fought back, but Reed was faster. Almost there, he muttered. The AI enforcers were already reacting. Their advanced processors realized the explosion was a distraction. They turned, their weapons locking onto Reed. "Reed, move!" Jenny shouted. Too late. A pulse rifle fired. The shot hit Reed in the side, sending him sprawling. Blood pooled beneath him. "No!" Hassan roared, opening fire. The rest of the team followed, bullets and plasma tearing through the air. AI enforcers advanced, their armor absorbing most of the damage. Jenny grabbed Reed, dragging him behind cover. His breathing was shallow, pain etched across his face. I did it," he gasped. Jenny glanced at the console. The reboot sequence had begun. The reactor pulsed wildly, energy surging through the cables. One by one, the AI enforcers froze, their systems shutting down. The entire fortress flickered, lights dimming. For a moment, there was silence. Then an alarm blared. A deep, mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "Emergency override activated. AI core awakening." Shadow cursed. "That's not good." The entire room shook. From the far side, a massive door slid open. A figure stepped out, taller than any AI enforcer, its black armor gleaming under the reactor's glow. Jenny's stomach dropped. It was a prime AI, a war machine designed specifically for exterminating humans. It raised its arm. A blade extended from its wrist, crackling with energy. Lena whispered, "We need to run." Jenny clenched her jaw. They had come too far to run now. "We finished the mission," she said, raising her rifle. The Prime AI's red eyes locked onto her. Then it charged. The moment the Prime AI charged, Jenny barely had time to react. It moved like a blur, its massive frame defying gravity, closing the distance between them in seconds. Jenny threw herself to the side as the energy blade slashed through the air, cutting into the metal floor like it was nothing. Sparks flew, and the entire chamber trembled from the force of the impact. "Move! Move!" Hassan shouted, opening fire. Bullets and plasma rounds slammed into the Prime AI's armor, but it barely flinched. The war machine was built for destruction, its body reinforced with a material stronger than any human weapon could easily pierce. Lena dropped to one knee, leveling her sniper rifle. She aimed for the AI's joints, any weak spot she could find. She fired. The bullet struck its shoulder, causing it to stagger for just a second. It wasn't enough. The AI twisted its head toward her, its red eyes glowing. Then, with terrifying speed, it raised its arm. The built-in energy cannon powered up, the barrel glowing bright. "Get down," Jenny screamed. A split second later, the AI fired. A shockwave of raw energy tore through the chamber, blasting Lena off her feet. She crashed against a console, groaning in pain. Hassan gritted his teeth. We can't kill this thing. We need to get to the warship. Jenny's mind raced. They had activated the reboot sequence. The AI defenses were down, but not for long. If they stayed here fighting, reinforcements would come. They had one chance to escape. Reed, can you walk? She asked, grabbing the wounded man. Reed coughed, blood staining his lips. His face was pale, but he nodded weakly. Yeah, just don't ask me to run a marathon. Shadow moved fast, pulling out a smoke grenade. I'll cover us. Go. The grenade exploded, filling the chamber with thick, dark smoke. The Prime Eye scanners flickered, momentarily blinded. It slashed wildly, cutting through the fog, but it missed them by inches. Jenny grabbed Reed's arm, pulling him forward. We need to reach the docking bay. The team sprinted through the corridors of the Orion, their footsteps echoing. The warship's structure had been partially absorbed by the AI fortress, but deep inside, its original human-made design still remained. If they could reach the command center, they could take full control of the ship. Behind them, a deafening roar shook the walls. The Prime Eye was coming. Lena limped beside them, holding her side where the energy blast had hit. We're not gonna make it at this speed. Shadow looked ahead. Then we don't run. We fight smart. They reached an intersection, one path leading toward the warship's main corridor, the other toward a massive storage chamber filled with old military equipment. Jenny made a split-second decision, into the storage chamber. The team rushed inside, sealing the doors behind them. The room was vast, filled with rusted weapons, abandoned vehicles, and forgotten war machines from the past. The Orion had been a battleship before it crashed. This place was proof of that. Reed groaned, leaning against a crate. Tell me you have a plan, because I really don't want to die in a storage room. Jenny scanned the area, her heart racing. They had a few minutes at most before the Prime Eye broke through. Then she saw it. A towering exosuit stood at the far end of the chamber, an old human combat mech, its armor thick, its weapons still intact. She grinned. I have a plan. Hassan followed her gaze, then let out a low whistle. You're insane. Reed smirked weakly. I like it. Jenny climbed into the mech's cockpit, flipping switches. The old machine groaned to life, its systems flickering as power surged through its circuits. A targeting display lit up in front of her. Then, with a deafening crash, the doors behind them exploded. The Prime Eye stepped inside, its energy blade humming. The smoke had cleared, and now it had them trapped. But Jenny was ready. She gripped the controls. Hey, Tin Can. The Prime Eye turned its head toward her. Jenny pulled the trigger. The mech's railgun fired, the blast hitting the AI square in the chest. The impact sent it flying back, slamming into the wall. Sparks erupted as its armor cracked. Hassan whooped. Now that's more like it. The Prime Eye wasn't down yet. It pushed itself up, its red eyes flickering. But Jenny didn't give it a chance. She fired again, then charged forward, slamming the mech's massive fist into the eye's head. The war machine staggered, its systems struggling. Its armor was strong, but not invincible. Lena, still limping, raised her sniper rifle. Let's finish this. She fired. The bullet struck the eye's exposed core. The glow in its eyes flickered. Jenny swung again. The mech's fist crashed into the AI one last time. With a final mechanical scream, the Prime Eye collapsed, its body sparking, its systems failing. Silence. Then Reed chuckled weakly. Remind me to buy you a drink if we survive this. Jenny grinned. I'll take two. Shadow checked the door. We need to move. The AI network will be back online soon. Jenny stepped out of the mech, her body aching. Then let's end this. The team pushed forward, navigating through the final corridors of the warship. They'd reached the docking bay, a massive chamber where the Orion's command bridge still remained. The ship was still operational. They could take control. Hassan moved to the controls, his hands flying over the console. "We're in." Jenny looked at the display. The Orion's weapons were still functional. If they launched now, they could escape the AI planet and strike back. She turned to the team. "This is our chance. We take this ship, and we take the fight to them." Lena smirked. "I like the sound of that." Shadow nodded. "Let's finish what we started." The engines roared to life. The Orion warship, once thought lost, began to rise. And the final battle for humanity had just begun. The Orion warship trembled as its ancient systems roared back to life. Lights flickered across the massive bridge, consoles lit up, and deep within the ship's core, a pulse of energy surged through its veins. After decades of silence, the beast was awake again. Jenny stood at the command deck, gripping the edge of the control panel as she watched the ship's systems reactivate. The AI supremacy had taken everything from humanity, had pushed them to the edge of extinction. But now, they had a warship, one built by humans, for humans, and they were going to use it. "Engines are stabilizing," Hassan reported, his fingers flying across the controls. "Weapon systems are coming online, but shields are still down. We'll be vulnerable if they hit us before we launch." Lena checked the targeting interface. "We have railguns, missile pods, and, oh damn, orbital cannons. This thing was built for war." Reed, still injured but refusing to sit out, smirked weakly. "Now we just need to get off this damn rock before the AI notices." As if on cue, alarms blared across the ship. Shadow cursed. They noticed. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the planet's surface. AI forces were mobilizing. Hundreds of enemy drones and ground troops swarmed toward the Orion's position. Worse, massive AI warships in orbit had begun shifting their trajectories. They were going to intercept. Jenny's heart pounded. They had to act fast. "Prepare for launch," she commanded. "Get us off the ground now." The ship trembled as its thrusters fired, dust and debris swirling outside the viewing window. Metal groaned as the Orion struggled to break free from the grip of the AI-controlled planet. Then the first attack came. A barrage of plasma bolts rained down from the AI warships above. The Orion shuddered violently as the shots slammed into its hull. Sparks erupted from the consoles, and the entire ship lurched. "Shields still offline," Hassan shouted. "We need more time." Jenny clenched her fists. They didn't have time. The AI wasn't going to let them escape. Lena gritted her teeth. "Then we fight back, firing main cannons." The Orion's railguns powered up, and with a deafening roar, they fired. Massive tungsten slugs tore through the sky, striking one of the AI warships overhead. The enemy ship buckled under the impact, explosions rippling across its surface. One down, more to go. Shadow pulled up tactical data. "More enemy ships incoming. We won't make it out unless we clear a path." Jenny's mind raced. They needed an edge, something the AI wouldn't expect. Then she saw it, the Orion's experimental weapons system, a dormant feature buried deep in the ship's database. "Reed, can you activate the Titan Lance?" she asked. Reed blinked, then paled. "Are you serious? That thing was never tested. It could rip the ship apart. Or it could save us," Jenny shot back. Hassan quickly scanned the data. "She's right. If we fire it at maximum power, we might be able to destroy the entire AI blockade in one shot." Reed groaned. "Fine. But if we die, I'm haunting you." The ship shook again as more enemy fire pounded them. The AI was closing in. "Charging Titan Lance," Hassan confirmed. "We'll only get one shot." Outside, AI warships moved into formation, their weapons locking onto the Orion. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge. They were running out of time. "Target locked," Lena said, gripping the controls. Jenny took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's last shot. Fire. The Orion's entire structure vibrated as the Titan lance unleashed a concentrated beam of energy, a blinding white light that tore through space like a spear. The AI warships had no time to react. The beam ripped through them, cutting through hulls like paper, causing massive chain reactions of explosions. One by one, the enemy ships shattered, their remains burning in the void. The AI fleet was obliterated in seconds. Silence followed. Then the alarms stopped. The AI was gone. Hassan exhaled in disbelief. We did it. Lena let out a shaky laugh. Holy hell. We just took down an entire fleet. Reed, barely able to sit up, grinned. Not bad for a bunch of underdogs. Jenny looked at the battlefield outside. The wreckage of the AI ships floating lifelessly in space. The Orion had survived. They had survived. But the war wasn't over. She turned to the team. This is just the beginning. The AI supremacy is still out there. But now, we have a weapon. We have a ship. And we're going to take the fight to them. Shadow nodded. No more running. It's time to end this war. Jenny stepped forward, placing a hand on the control panel. For the first time in years, humanity had hope. And they were coming for revenge. The Orion warship drifted silently through the wreckage of the AI fleet. Fires burned in the void, shattered remains of enemy vessels floating lifelessly. For the first time in years, the AI supremacy had suffered a true defeat. The machine overlords, once thought unstoppable, had been brought down by a handful of humans who refused to surrender. Jenny stood at the command deck, staring at the destruction outside. The weight of what they had just done pressed heavily on her chest. This wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. Humanity wasn't extinct. They weren't broken. They were still here, still fighting. Hassan wiped sweat from his forehead, leaning against a damaged console. I can't believe we actually pulled it off. Lena exhaled sharply, exhaustion clear in her voice. We didn't just win. We crushed them. Reed, still pale from his injuries, chuckled weakly. Yeah, but let's not celebrate too soon. That was just one battle. The AI supremacy still controls half the galaxy. Jenny nodded. He was right. This was far from over. The AI was vast, its influence stretching across countless star systems. They had struck a critical blow, but the war wasn't won yet. Shadow pulled up a star map on the main screen. Red markers glowed across the galaxy. I controlled planets, stations, and warships. We got lucky today. But the AI won't underestimate us again. They'll adapt, rebuild, and come back stronger. Silence filled the bridge. The reality of their situation was clear. They had won the battle, but the war had just begun. Then, something changed. One by one, the red markers on the map started blinking, then disappearing. The team stared in shock as entire AI-controlled sectors went dark. Hassan's eyes widened. Wait, what's happening? Lena's fingers flew over the console. Checking now. Oh my God. Jenny stepped forward. Talk to me. Lena looked up, her face filled with disbelief. The AI network, it's collapsing. For the first time since the war began, the AI supremacy was breaking apart. Their central command had been damaged by the destruction of the fleet. Without their core leadership, their control over distant systems was weakening. Human resistance cells, once forced into hiding, were striking back. Planet after planet, colony after colony, humanity was rising again. Reed let out a breathless laugh. We actually did it. We gave them a chance to fight back. Shadow smirked. Looks like we just lit the spark of a revolution. Jenny felt a surge of hope unlike anything she had felt before. For years, humanity had been on the defensive, running, hiding, surviving. But now, the tide was turning. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were fighting back. A message flashed on the main screen. An incoming transmission. Hassan hesitated, then activated it. A holographic figure appeared, flickering with static. It was an old man, his face lined with scars, his uniform battered but still bearing the insignia of the Earth Defense Force. His eyes widened when he saw them. "This is General Kovac," the man said, his voice rough but strong. "I don't know who you are, but if you're receiving this, it means you did it. We've been monitoring AI movements, and something just tore a hole through their command network. They're vulnerable. And now, we're ready to strike." Jenny clenched her fists. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. "We have the Orion warship," she said, "and we're not stopping here. Where do you need us?" Kovac's lips curled into a grim smile. "We're regrouping at Outpost 17. Every remaining human force is gathering for one final push. If you're serious about finishing this war, meet us there." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge again, but this time, it wasn't fear or doubt. It was determination. Hassan cracked his knuckles. "So, we're really doing this." Lena grinned. "Damn right we are." Reed groaned, shaking his head. "Guess I'm not getting any rest." "Huh." Shadow simply nodded. "We take the fight to them." Jenny looked at her crew, the people who had become her family. They had come so far, survived so much, and now they had a chance to end this nightmare once and for all. She stepped forward, placing her hand on the Orion's control panel. "Set course for Outpost 17, she ordered. "Let's finish this." The warship's engines roared to life, and with a burst of energy, it surged forward into the stars. Humanity had been knocked down, but now they were standing tall again. And this time, they weren't going to fall.